First tonight, Oversight Committee Chairman Congressman Darrell Issa sending a letter to the White House today, and in that letter hammering the president for invoking executive privilege to conceal documents from Fast and Furious investigators. Issa wrote, quote, "Either you or your most senior advisors were involved in managing Operation Fast and Furious, or you are asserting a presidential power that you know to be unjustified for the purpose of obstructing a congressional investigation." End quote. White House spokesman Jay Carney downplayed the importance of the investigation, saying, quote, "It's not an urgent priority," end quote. Meanwhile, House Republicans are set to vote on contempt of Congress against Attorney General Holder this Thursday. The House's number 2 Democrat, Congressman Steny Hoyer, complains that the contempt vote is a rush to judgment. Almost 15 months after the investigation had begun, Hoyer claiming most contempt citations take an average of 95 days before a floor vote. Left-wing activists taking their complaints a step further. The Reverend Al Sharpton charging racism while assembling black leaders to protest. Sharpton said, quote, "AG Holder was reminded that despite his esteemed position, he can and would be profiled. AG Holder was, in essence, stopped and frisked without probable cause. What Issa just showed us is that no matter what our stature in the world, someone can easily try to put us in our place." One hopes that statement is true for every American, no matter their stature nor how powerful. Congressman Issa telling Fox News today that at least 31 Democratic congressmen are prepared to vote with the Republicans in finding Attorney General Holder in contempt of Congress. For more on today's developments in the Fast and Furious investigation, we go to Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel.
It was business as usual today for Attorney General Eric Holder, who attended an event with the Boys and Girls Club ahead of Thursday's contempt of Congress vote, as House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa wrote this letter to the president, who has claimed executive privilege over some justice documents. Issa asked if Mr. Obama or his senior advisors were managing Operation Fast and Furious and the fallout from it, including a false letter in February 2011. Then Issa wrote, quote, "Or you are asserting a presidential power that you know to be unjustified solely for the purpose of further obstructing a congressional investigation."
The letter to the president is something in which we'd like to make sure the president fully understands that contempt is because we're getting an outright refusal. Contempt is not, and I repeat, is not because we want everything.
The White House quickly responded to the letter, arguing its position is consistent with executive branch legal precedent for the past 3 decades spanning administrations of both parties. Spokesman Eric Schultz said, quote, "The courts have routinely considered deliberative process privilege claims and affirmed the right of the executive branch to invoke the privilege even when White House documents are not involved." Republicans jumped on that, saying the president didn't claim deliberative process. He asserted executive privilege, which is designed to protect internal White House decision-making. Also defending Holder, a group of civil rights leaders today suggested the first African-American attorney general is being held to an unfair standard.
We are also here to address, finally, what has only been inferred heretofore, and that's the fact that the issue of race is a subtle factor in this effort.
A short time ago, we learned that a last-ditch effort to head off this crisis failed. The White House counsel, a senior justice official, met with key aides to Speaker John Boehner and also House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa. They presented fewer than 30 documents, according to congressional sources, and promised hundreds more if the Republicans would end this contempt effort and call off their investigation. We are told the talks broke down. We can expect a contempt vote against the Attorney General on Thursday. Lou?
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Emanuel, our chief congressional correspondent. Joining me now is Peter Johnson, Jr., trial appellate attorney, Fox News legal analyst. Peter, let's go to the first issue, executive privilege. I thought that Congressman Issa put it rather straightforwardly. Either this was an abuse of executive privilege. He really left him not much choice in that description.
I think Congressman Issa made it clear. He said, Mr. President, were your folks telling the truth when you said you were not involved with this in the past? But now you're asserting an executive privilege that goes to the heart of the White House, meaning that there are communications back and forth between you and your advisors on this particular issue that would confer a privilege. Which is it? Were you involved or were you not involved? If you were involved, okay, then maybe executive privilege is in fact appropriate. If you're not involved, then what are you trying to cover up?
And it really leaves the president, it seems, no choice but to suggest that he was involved in the decision process, or that executive privilege has been misapplied here.
Well, not to get into the weeds, I mean, the case law is clear. There's something called an operational proximity test, and that's easily understood. How close was the president to these communications? The closer the president is, the more executive privilege applies. The further away the president is, the more executive privilege does not apply. So again, which is it? What choice is going to be made? And are certain laws going to be upheld when it's convenient for the White House? And are certain laws going to be ignored when it's convenient for the White House?
I think we have some partial answers to those questions in other policy decisions and practices. But in this instance, let's assume that the folks surrounding this president are very bright folks.
They are bright, yes.
What would be the point of asserting executive privilege if they put themselves precisely on the horns of that dilemma?
The point is shut it down. Don't give the documents over. Litigate this in court. The other thing you have to understand, though, and I think you do, but the audience should understand, is that this subpoena will die with the end of this Congress. It will have no power at the end of this Congress. And so if they can stall and stall and stall, take the hit on executive privilege rather than taking the hit on what may be revealed by these thousands of documents as to what the president might have known, what the AG knew or didn't know, how they were trying to respond and or cover up congressional and media inquiries based on the fact that they changed their stories about Fast and Furious. So take the hit on executive privilege. The American people are upset about this.
And upset, and one understands that the Republican leadership in Congress is upset. At the same time, we talk about checks and balances.
Right.
This is a balance of power at test now. Who is most likely to blink here? If, as you say, the president has the benefit of putting this into court and trying it, and that's a stalling technique, likely we're to see no
I don't think Congress is going to blink, but I think it's part and parcel of a greater crisis we have between the executive and the laws in this country. In some sense, there's almost a 21st century nullification crisis, whereby this White House says, we can nullify immigration laws if we want. Right. We can nullify a Supreme Court decision by revoking a partnership with the states and by setting up a wanted poster, a hotline to report police officers in Arizona. We can nullify voting fraud in this country by saying, no, we're not going to give you, state of Florida, information that we have about who's a citizen, which is a requirement to vote in this country, and we're going to accuse you of racial discrimination in the same way that Al Sharpton has as part of the shock team today on behalf of the White House.
The black leaders who stood up there with Al Sharpton today and put this in racist terms, at what point is that effective politically? At what point is it likely to be a backlash?
It's ineffective, and I think it's ineffective with the African-American base of the Democratic Party. I understand racism. I've seen it up close and personal. I helped the first African-American mayor of New York City, David Dinkins, 20 years ago. So I understand it. But to call out Eric Holder for not turning over documents, thousands of them, when he's engaging in this kind of last-minute, the dog ate the homework excuse, and then to say, well, that he's being vilified, he's being attacked, he's being singled out because of the color of his skin, I find that to be objectionable, if not laughable. And I think most American people, black, white, brown, of every persuasion, will say, come on, what are you talking about? That's fine in a rally. That's fine on a failing cable show, but don't do it to the American people.
And Reverend Sharpton didn't look particularly comfortable up there today. You wonder just how comfortable he actually was. We'll find out in days and weeks ahead.
We will.
Peter Johnson,
good to see you, Lou.
Here. Thank you, as always, for the tutorial.
Thank you.